There's a lot of rumblings about a new tax on tech companies and the like. Amazon and other companies who've cashed in during the coronavirus pandemic could face a double tax raid under plans being drawn up by the government to plug the black hole in Britain's finances. Treasury officials have summoned tech firms and retailers to a meeting later this month ahead of the budget to discuss how an online sales tax could work. The Downing Street Policy Unit is also working on proposals for an excessive profits tax on companies that have seen profits surge as a result of the current crisis. Amazon sales in Britain leapt 51% last year to £19.5 billion as those in lockdown became more reliant on home deliveries. And to give that some context, Amazon paid $4.5 million in corporation tax in 2019. The company refuses to disclose its total corporation payment. Let's speak to John Caudwell, business leader, philanthropist and founder of Phones for You. Afternoon to you, John. Good to have you with us. I think at one time, nice to have you with us as ever. Didn't you have the title as the individual that pays the most tax in this country?
I think I did at one time, yes. I paid a lot of tax for about 10 years after I sold the business. And, but I was glad to do so because I love Britain and I thought the tax rate was fair. But it is galling when other people end up paying no tax through very clever manipulation of the global taxation systems.
But of course, those companies would say, and you'll be aware of this, they'll say we pay all the tax we're legally obliged to pay.
Yeah, absolutely. There is a huge difference, though, between legality and morality. Somebody has to contribute towards the fabric of society to keep Britain or any other country able to provide services for people desperately in need. So there is a morality in this as well, but it's also down to world governments to make certain that they don't allow loopholes to be make it able for companies to pay very little tax or none.
So what do you think should happen then? If you were advising the government on this, John, what would be your suggestion? Because again, the Amazons of this world will say, well, look, this is just how capitalism works. We pay tax in multiple jurisdictions as well. And, every company that we have, every arm of those companies, all the individuals that work there also pay tax. The depots pay huge business rates. We pay a shed load of VAT as well. If you add it all together, we're paying more tax than even you've paid, John.
Yes, but very less in percentage terms. But not arguing that point because, look, I'm very, very much into wealth creation, into businesses. I want to attract all the businesses that we can, and that's part of Caudwell pandemic recovery, to come to our shores and find it a tax-friendly haven, a place where they can generate wealth and jobs. But, and there is a big but in this, that because of this pandemic, which is a very unique occurrence, there are certain businesses that have done unbelievably well. Amazon, of course, being one of those. They were massively successful anyway, but all that the pandemic has done has given dramatic grief to a lot of high street retailers who are struggling and holding on by the fingertips to survive, or in some cases not surviving at all. And then other online businesses are prospering massively. I think it's a very unique situation that does allow to call for a very unique tax, a windfall tax, that says the excess profits that you've made as a result of pandemic, only for 1 year, are taxed at a very, very high rate. This is your contribution towards the pandemic crisis, and it's your reasonable moral duty to do so, but we're going to make it a legal requirement anyway.
Yeah. In terms of the wider issue of taxation, I mean, I always find it interesting. Your feet seem firmly on the ground, John. You had an ordinary upbringing, a standard, decent family life. You went to a normal school. I think you ducked out your A levels, didn't you? If I'm right in saying.
I did. Yeah, I did. I realised that entrepreneurship was going to be much more my future than pure education.
Indeed. But there must, when you sit back, I was watching the Channel 4 documentary about your home in London, and it's obviously, a lot of money went into refurbishing the home, and you're a billionaire. How do you square that in your own head? Do you look back and think, wow, I'm lucky, or is luck the wrong word because you've also worked very, very hard? Do you ever feel guilty for having that much money? Should people with more money pay more tax in this country than they currently do?
Well, there's a lot of questions wrapped up into one there,
Yeah.
Ian. But I think the first thing is, no, I don't feel in the least bit guilty. I worked and flogged myself to death for 40 years and was quite smart, to be honest. You know, I did a lot of things that were quite smart, and I was in the forefront of the mobile phone revolution.
Yep.
And one of the winners, and there wasn't many winners out of that, certainly not big winners. But then, do we have a moral obligation to help society? I absolutely believe it's the rich's obligation. It's why I'm donating all the time to charity. I spend at least half of my time working on charity, and I've also committed at least 70% of my wealth during or after my lifetime to charity as part of the Giving Pledge. And of course, I've paid all my taxes as well. I think it's really the obligation of the rich to support society so that we all live in a healthy country where the balance between rich and poor is not distorted to such a point that people rise up in arms and rebel against the rich.
Yeah. But of course, you don't make somebody, a poor person rich by making a rich person poorer.
No, absolutely. We need to encourage wealth. We need to admire wealth creators, but we really need to admire only those people that create wealth and put something back into society in whichever way that is.
Yeah.
I don't think people accumulating vast wealth and holding on to it does any good for society, does any good for their own image, or any good for their children when they leave those vast sums of wealth, if that's what they do. So I would encourage every rich person to join the Giving Pledge. Give at least half of your wealth away. You know, in Jeff Bezos's case, I'm sure he'll do something eventually, but he just needs a bit of encouragement. But in his case, he has made so much money last year out of this pandemic. He's made probably 60 billion of personal wealth extra out of the pandemic. If he committed to give 99% of his wealth away during this, to the Giving Pledge, he would still be worth twice as much, or sorry, 4 times as much as I'm worth, having given my wealth away to the Giving Pledge.
Yeah.
Having given 99%, and he'd be the hero of the world. You know, he'd make a huge difference to people's lives, and he'd still have more than enough money to do almost anything he could ever want to do. So I don't understand people really holding on to vast sums of wealth. They are to be encouraged to do the Giving Pledge and to help society retain some degree of balance.
Indeed. I can hear a bit of drilling going on in the background there, John. You're not having more renovations done at your Monaco pad, are you?
I'm just managing a project here, actually.
All right. You haven't got a Channel 4 film crew with you this time?
No, nothing like that. Not this time.
Good work. John, always good to have you on. Thank you, sir. John Caudwell, business leader and philanthropist with us here on Talk Radio.